for the 41st Assembly District join us this evening. Thank you all for attending, and thank you for running for public office. We continue to be cautious during this pandemic. Therefore, questions were solicited beforehand via print and social media. More than 24 questions were submitted by Ripon College students as well as the public. Thank you to those who submitted questions. The questions have been screened by league members to ensure questions may be answered by all candidates. Before we begin the program, I want to encourage everyone to vote. If you have not registered to do so, or if you need to request an absentee ballot, you may do so at myvote.wi.gov/. It will also be available on the League of Women Voters of the Ripon Area Facebook page. The link will be shown during the live viewing as well as the taped replay. The site is tied to the Department of Motor Vehicles, and as such, you may use your driver's license or your Wisconsin state ID that you get at the DMV to register as a voter or as a means of photo identification requesting an absentee ballot. As the League of Women Voters begins its second century, we find ourselves adapting to the same social and medical challenges that we all face. We are running tonight with a skeleton crew. We thank Riley Icenagel and his team at the Ripon Channel for their dedication to bring you this information. This forum, while live on both Spectrum Channel 986 and Ripon YouTube, is also being taped and will be replayed on the Ripon Cable YouTube channel, as well as the League Facebook page and website. Peyton Ron of Ripon College is also streaming Facebook Live at facebook.com/RiponCollegeCPP. This session will provide the voters of the 41st Assembly District information on the candidates, allowing voters to make informed voting decisions. The candidates have drawn for position and will present in the order drawn. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for opening remarks and up to 2 minutes to answer each question. Closing remarks will be limited to 1 minute. The lead will change following opening remarks through closing remarks. Mr. Dahlman, Alex, has won the draw, and he will begin with opening remarks.
Thank you, Ellen, the League of Women Voters, and to Ripon College for putting this forum on tonight. It gives us all an opportunity to get our voices to be heard and our vision for the district out in the public eye during this COVID pandemic, when it's been hard to get our voices out there. I'm Alex Dahlman. Once again, I grew up in Marquezan, Wisconsin, which is on the south side of the 41st District. I now currently reside in Green Lake. I graduated from college at Edgewood College down in Madison, and then upon graduation, I took a job with Congressman Glenn Grothman, who serves Wisconsin's 6th Congressional District. For the last 5 years, I've been involved with his office through constituent services, helping constituents navigate the federal bureaucracy that I believe has grown way too large in our country, and I also believe it mirrors the state agencies as well, and it far overreaches into our lives too much. So I'm hoping to run for the 41st District and represent the people of this district in order to lessen our scope of government, lower our taxes, and be more representative of the people of our district and the conservative values that we hold near and dear, such as law and order, pro-life, and the protection of our Second Amendment. So with that, I'd like to just say hi once again, and I feel free. I'm looking forward to being the most accessible representative that we've had, and I'm looking forward to meeting every single one of you throughout the next months to come and years to come as your representative.
Thank you, Alex. Nate?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Ellen, and the League of Women Voters for putting on tonight's event, and also to Ripon College for your participation. My name is Nate Zimdars. I was born and raised right here in Ripon, where I have lived for most of my life, except for 1 year where I was living in West Africa as a missionary for the Lutheran Church. I grew up on a small hobby farm just a couple of miles south of Ripon, raising sheep and poultry for 4-H and FFA projects. I happen to live just down the road from Zimdars Family Farm, the farm that has been in the Zimdars family for 145 years. My uncles and cousins still own and operate the farm, and when the opportunity presents itself, I still like to help out on the farm here and there. My full-time job is working at Saputo Cheese in the little community just outside of Ripon, the community of Alto. I am third shift working on the production line. I am very involved right here in the local community. I am active with the Ripon FFA alumni. I am a publicly elected representative to the Ripon Area School Board. I am involved with the Fond du Lac County Farm Bureau Board of Directors, also active at the state level with the FFA alumni, Wisconsin FFA alumni, and the Wisconsin Coalition Against Sexual Assault. I am running for state assembly because I believe we need an authentic rural voice representing this rural assembly district. Moving forward, if elected to serve as your state representative, my three main priorities are going to be to support our farmers and our agricultural economy, which is very significant here in the 41st Assembly District. Also working to invest in rural infrastructure, which has been hit incredibly hard by the COVID-19 pandemic, and also ensuring that we continue to have affordable and accessible health care.
Okie dokie. Jean.
Well, thank you again to the League of Women Voters and to Ripon College for hosting this forum, and thank you to Nate and Alex for being here tonight. I'm glad we could all get together. My name is Jean Bartz, and I am the independent candidate in this race. To give you a brief overview about me, I was adopted at the age of 2, and I grew up outside of Rhinelander in a very rural area as well. I got my degree in history at the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh, and after that, I took a job as a property manager to support myself and my then infant daughter. It was there where I met my best friend and my other half, and in 2014, Dan and I married and became a blended family with 2 daughters and 5 pets. He brought the dogs, I brought the cats. So currently, I'm a regional property manager. I oversee a multi-million-dollar portfolio of properties throughout Wisconsin, and I'm the managing broker of Bartz Realty, where my husband and I sell real estate, we manage properties, and we renovate homes. So clearly, I have a lot going on right now, but as the oldest candidate in the race, I have a lot of life experience that I bring to the table, and I understand so many issues that people in our district are currently going through. The reason I got into this race is because of the polarization and the partisanship that we see these days. It's very distressing to me to see how extreme things have gotten. Things I'm passionate about: supporting tourism in our district, supporting farmers, small businesses, and of course, given my background, affordable housing. My goal here in this race is to ensure that every single member of our district gets a voice, no matter which party they affiliate with. I want to be engaged directly with the people of our district and accountable directly to the people of our district. So I view here that the people are my boss as an elected official, and I will not forget or be forced to ignore that, because my goal is always to work for the betterment of our district, not partisan agendas and not special interest groups.
Thank you, Jean. We will begin our questions with Nate. And again, if you need me to repeat it, I'll repeat it. According to a recent Marquette Law School poll, 72% of Wisconsin voters say they prefer redistricting of legislative and congressional districts to be done by a nonpartisan commission. Example, the Iowa model. Will you commit to supporting the use of a nonpartisan agency or board, such as the Legislative Reference Bureau, to carry out the job of redistricting after the 2020 census? If so, why or why not?
I believe that we do need to move in that direction. Currently, our state constitution says that the political party that is in power, whichever Republican or Democrat is in control of the legislature, and when it is time to draw those maps, they're in charge of drawing the maps. Currently, there is no incentive for whichever party is in power to draw the maps in a way in which things would be evened out or to provide any kind of benefit for the opposing political party. So that being said, yes, I do believe we need to move in a direction in which there is a nonpartisan commission, and there are a couple of different ways that we can do it. One idea that I favor, and this is a little bit different from what Governor Evers has currently put forward, I like the idea of having individuals chosen from the Republican side of the aisle and individuals chosen from the Democratic side of the aisle, similar to the Wisconsin Elections Commission. That way it would be nonpartisan and you would be including both of the political parties. Also, when we look at this issue, we need to be mindful of the fact that there is significant support, as Ellen had previously mentioned. And you look at counties across the state that have put forward referendums on the ballot, and a vast majority of counties here in the state of Wisconsin favor this. So I believe it is high time for us to move in this direction. First, we need to have a constitutional change, bring that forward as a referendum, something similar to what the Republicans put forward just a couple years ago in regards to removing the office of the treasurer here in our state. So this wouldn't be the first time that we would bring forward a constitutional change. I believe it's possible, and at the end of the day, I also believe that just because it is doesn't mean it should be.
Thank you. Jean?
Absolutely. I definitely agree with the idea of fair maps. It's been clear throughout not only our state, but our district that the majority of counties and the majority of people do want to see this happen. I think it's fairly common sense that you don't put the people in power in charge of determining who gets the power. It doesn't make sense. Like Nate said, there's no incentive for it to be fair and equal at that point. So I also favor a nonpartisan group. I really like Nate's idea of having set number of Republicans and Democrats to come together and work this through. But if we needed to go to an outside party, I also think that that's doable as well. In that case, however, I would like to see a couple of different solutions provided and then bring that back to the legislature so that they can choose from among those three. I'll bet with a caveat that those are the choices. There's no changes that are made to the choices after that. So I think that would really help ensure whether we go with a nonpartisan in-legislature group or an outside party, we can definitely make this happen. And the people have made it clear they want this, and we need to work for what the people are wanting.
Thank you. Alex?
Yes, so as Nate mentioned, it's in our Constitution that the party in power does draw the maps. It allows, and for the next time around, let's just say if the Republicans have the majority in our legislature coming into next year and we are redistricting, the Democrat governor has the opportunity to veto the maps if he feels that they are not in order or just. I believe that, and then after that, it will go to our courts, which is supposed to be a nonpartisan group. As we have seen with the Governor's Commission that he has put forward in the last week or so, it is impossible for us to put together a nonpartisan commission. I'm still looking for a person that is truly nonpartisan that could be looking for the benefit of both sides. And when we look into the commission that he has put forward, if we were to do a 3-3, such as the Wisconsin Elections Commission, it's often solved, and the ties we just saw last week that the ties are broken through the Supreme Court anyway. So I'm in favor of keeping it the same way that we have it. We have a separation of powers between the legislature and the governor, and if they don't align, it'll be settled in the courts.
Thank you. Jean, we'll begin with you on this question. The tax on one Juul pod, the most popular e-cigarette among teens, is 3.5 cents, while the tax on a package of cigarettes is $2.52. Both contain the same amount of nicotine, a highly addictive substance that is shown to hamper brain development in teens. What are some specific actions, such as increasing retail costs, which have shown that reduces use at that point, through taxes, that the legislature could take to protect our youth from becoming addicted to nicotine and create equity between tobacco retailers and those who sell e-cigarettes?
That is a great question. I think the obvious choice right off the bat is an increase in that tax. I distinctly remember when I was a child, my brother was a smoker, and I remember the last time that tax went up, which was quite a while ago, and it made a significant difference in how he managed his budget and was able to purchase those, and hopefully made an impact on the amount that he smoked and hopefully his health. So I 100% agree with an increase on that tax for vaping products. Another thing I thought was really interesting, surveyed retailers, over 25% of them are placing these tobacco products, these nicotine products, within 12 inches of youth products. And that is very telling, I think, in terms of the overall theme of that marketing. So if there's something we could address to really incentivize the retailers to stop doing that and move them even perhaps behind the counter, which would then make them less accessible to youth, I think that would help. I would also like to see better funding for our tobacco prevention programs, because one of the things that truly helps change hearts and minds is education. Most people probably don't realize that the amount of nicotine in these products is so high. So if we can push that information out there, it allows people to make better decisions for their own health. So those are a few examples of some things that I would like to see changed.
Thank you. Alex?
Yes, so I'm in agreement with Jean that we need to raise the tax on the jewel pods. I know this is a very big problem in our schools as well, with e-cigarettes coming into our schools and being accessible to our children and our youth, and it's very detrimental to the health of our youth. So I believe that we need to do everything we can to push back the access of these products, and also work as a state to realign with the federal government policy of moving it all age 21 for tobacco products. So now the states and the federal government are kind of at odds, and we need to be able to better align our policy with the federal government as well.
Thank you. Nate?
So in having conversations with the South Central Tobacco Coalition, I was able to learn a little bit more about the issue, and the one thing that stood out to me more than anything was the marketing that is specifically done towards youth. Frankly, I found it quite shocking. And also looking at the disparities currently, we see the cigarette tax is that much higher than what we're seeing for jewel products. So I believe that, yes, we do need to increase that tax so that it is an even playing field on that front, and also in an effort to disincentivize taking advantage of these products with our young children, our youth.
Thank you. Alex, we begin with you. Wisconsin is among the top 10 states in the nation for nitrate contamination, both in municipal water systems and private wells. Do you view this as a serious issue? What is your view on water contamination from agriculture, as well as the use of pesticides by agriculture, golf courses, and yard weed control?
Yes, as this issue has become more in the forefront the last few years in Wisconsin, I believe we need to continue to invest in water quality and water protection. We have seen it in our tourism efforts as well, with Big Green Lake right down the road from here in Ripon. It's a huge tourist destination, and if the lake becomes infected with E. coli, it's impossible for people to enjoy the lake and the beautiful water that we have in our district. So I believe we need to continue to invest in studies on how to better keep our water quality up, and different ways into how we can reduce the amount of nitrates going into our water, such as leaf and yard waste pickup management in cities, and also through different agricultural processes.
Thank you. Nate?
Yes, it is a very significant district, and especially when we look here at the 41st Assembly District and our abundance of marshes, of lakes, of streams, we need to be very cognizant of the impact that nitrate runoff has on those water resources. As a Farm Bureau member, I have been very active and involved in having these conversations with Farm Bureau, farmers, other individuals who are invested in agriculture who sometimes have had an impact on that nitrate runoff, and also other individuals who are very concerned. Just last night, I had a policy development committee meeting with the Fond du Lac County Farm Bureau, and this was a hot topic for us. And overall, the desire was expressed from Farm Bureau members, from folks who are active in a variety of different agricultural practices, to do more to stop nitrate runoff. That's something really important that I just want to point out, because far too often our farmers are blamed for a lot of this nitrate runoff, when in fact golf courses, homeowners, there are others who contribute to this as well. So that is something that I want to point out. Farmers want to take care of the land. They drink the same water, they fish in the same streams, they swim in the same lakes as all of us. So there are more opportunities, I believe, for our farmers, for people involved in agriculture, our golf courses, and individuals who have maybe had some impact with the nitrate runoff, to work together to develop watersheds and practices that will ensure that this doesn't continue to be an issue, especially in a district like ours.
Thank you. Jean?
Yeah, well, I'm hearing a lot of agreement so far, which is awesome to hear. obviously we know that water quality is going to be a big issue, especially in our district here. And I think the way we started here this past year with having this action and research group put together by the governor and the legislature to learn more about the problem was really a great start. Now it's up to us to take that data and to take the opinions of the experts and really start to run with it. So I do believe that we need to make that accurate reporting available to the public so that the public can also provide their input as they have been doing in these public sessions throughout the past year. And I definitely agree with Nate. We need to be bringing farmers into this conversation because too often our farmers are demonized when it comes to these specific issues, and they are more connected to the land than the majority of people in our state because they are out there working the land every single day. So I really think that it starts with the experts, and then from there we can take that data to really make good, conscious decisions with quantifiable results to really make some progress in this issue. But of course, I'm not a water expert, so I will certainly want to involve and listen to the experts as well as the farmers so that we can make good decisions on this topic.
Thank you. Nate, you are the lead on this one. Is there a role that the legislature can play in combating human trafficking, a longtime problem that is being more and more visible?
Absolutely. And we have already seen some traction on that front. I know safe harbor legislation was a big topic of conversation in the last legislative cycle. I was actually down in Madison having conversations with our Representative Joan Ballwig and also State Senator Luther Olson. As someone who is on the board of directors, who serves as vice president for the Wisconsin Coalition Against Sexual Assault, this is a very serious topic of conversation among us, because far too often this trafficking, sexual assault does factor into a lot of the human trafficking that we are seeing here in the state. So as an organization, we are invested, we are involved in those conversations, and I have been hopeful over the last couple of years, just with the continued conversations the legislature has been having, that there is that desire to continue moving forward, to continue working hand in hand, with our law enforcement officers to identify where there might be potential issues, where there are pathways in our state. I know the I-41 corridor, that tends to be a very high traffic place. So having those conversations with law enforcement officers of what they need to look out for when they are patrolling our interstates, and also having conversations with truck drivers, because a lot of times some of this trafficking is occurring at rest stops along our busy interstates. So having some training that is provided for those individuals so that they know what some of those warning signs are for them to look out for.
Thank you. Jean?
This is clearly an important topic and one that is fairly personal to me. As the mother of a young daughter, it's something that is scary to think that other parents are having to deal with these concerns and potentially having their children involved in this. And also on an even more personal level, I had mentioned I was adopted when I was 2, and I was actually dropped on a doorstep at about 2 weeks old, and it was the strongest thing that my birth mother could have done, and I have so much respect for that decision, given who her husband was at the time, because I know how my life would have turned out had she not made that choice. So I really agree with Nate that the training, and not only for law enforcement and truck drivers, but for maybe those that are working at these rest stops, people in the community, to be able to identify the warning signs and potential indications throughout the community of where we might be seeing these trafficking occurrences happening, I think is really important. And that's something where the more that we can encourage this training and education and really standardize it to make sure that good information is being distributed to the people, I think that will go a long way, because the community wants to be involved. The people want to help on this issue. So the more we can educate the people on how to spot these signs, I think the more progress we'll make in the long run to really curb these human trafficking incidents.
Thank you. Alex?
Yes, as a staff member for Congressman Grothman, I noticed we took a lot of priority in human trafficking. There was a couple of bills, or a handful of bills, that were passed in the federal level. And in the 6th District in general, we realized that both the I-41 and the I-43 corridor were major hubs of human trafficking. We spent a lot of time meeting with local law enforcement, learning how they combat human trafficking in different ways that they are training their employees and their communities. I do believe we need to do a better job of teaching our youth the dangers of human trafficking and how common it actually is, especially through social media. We have learned that the human traffickers have taken to social media to learn and see which students may or may not have a hard time at home, and it's an easy way for them to find their next victim. So we need to do a better job of educating our youth, working with our law enforcement, and giving our law enforcement the resource that they need to better counteract our human trafficking problem.
Thank you. Jean, you'll begin this question. What are key initiatives that you hope to enhance or start new that address health disparities, specifically when it comes to rural areas with high poverty? Is the solution to dwindling healthcare facilities and practitioners in rural communities something that needs to be addressed by the public or private sector, or a combination of the two?
I'm a huge fan of public-private cooperation. I don't believe that the government is in the best position to solve all problems, and I certainly don't think that they're the most efficient at solving all problems. So this is really where you can combine public incentivization with private innovation, I think is really going to be a key. We all know right now areas where we have to drive 30, 40 minutes to get health care, and sometimes mental health care, it's even farther. I think a public-private partnership would really be good. One thing that I really think plays well to point out, right now the federal poverty level for a family of 4 is about $26,000 a year. So imagine that, $26,000 for a family of 4. If we were to increase our Medicaid, Medicare eligibility to 133% of the federal poverty level, that's still $35,000 for a family of 4. That's not a lot of money. Making that increase would allow 80,000 more Wisconsinites to get affordable health care, and the more people that are covered, the less risk the hospitals take, and the lower the costs can be. So having that information out there, there's a misconception that increasing this eligibility, people that don't need it would have it. We're talking $35,000 for a family of 4. It's doable, and it would save us money in the long run. So I really think that's something that needs to be re-explored by the legislature.
Thank you. Alex?
I also believe that it needs to be a public-private partnership. I'm awfully lucky, and we're awfully lucky to be living in an area such as Ripon or Green Lake, where we have access to critical care hospitals within a short drive, with Berlin and Ripon, and also Waupun. As we get over in the western part of our district, where the residents over there aren't as lucky to be as close to as a hospital as we are. So we need to do a good job, especially during these COVID times, where we have forced hospitals to stop performing elective surgeries and to stop doing preventative care. We need to help our rural hospitals to stay in business and around, because if we lose access to affordable and rural health care, it could be detrimental to our populations, and we could see a lot of residents leaving our area to live closer to the health care that they receive. I also believe that we need to invest more into our future doctors and nurses. I believe we need to keep reinvesting into our career and technical education, and getting our healthcare workers into the workforce as we move forward too. We can't have a shortage of supply of healthcare workers in our rural areas. It'd be one way to keep people in our area and help our economy as well.
Thank you. Nate?
We do see disparities right here in the 41st Assembly District. Being over here in the Ripon area, we are very fortunate in that we do have a hospital, and we do have healthcare clinics. Again, when you get to the more western part of the district, that's where things become a little bit more challenging. And I know for a lot of folks who have called this area home for much of their life, that just came with the territory. That was the understanding that this was just the way it was. Now, if we want to continue to attract families, attract other individuals to live within this area, we need to be able to provide that type of care. And ultimately, there has to be public-private partnerships to make this happen. One of the best ways I think we can continue to attract individuals into this area to work in healthcare is providing incentives for students who just recently graduated from medical school or some other healthcare field to come live within the district and work for a certain number of years, and by doing so, they can help have some of their debt paid off. I think that's just one great way that we can continue to attract individuals to work in the healthcare field, specifically in this area. And ultimately, we have to continue to provide funding to maintain the hospitals and clinics that we currently have. And depending on how things work out with the budget and the revenue, which I know right now during these COVID times will be challenging as we move ahead into a budget writing year, but we need to keep open the possibility of satellite branches for different healthcare clinics and different hospitals so that everybody in these rural areas don't have to drive a half hour or an hour or even farther if they need to go to a provider.
Thank you. Alex, you take the lead on this. Seeing as though this event is co-sponsored by an organization at Ripon College, what can be done to make post-high school education and/or vocational training readily available and affordable to residents of the state?
Yes, so I believe that the student debt is obviously one of the major problems in our country right now. College has become more unaffordable as we move along, and students come out of college with maybe a degree that isn't going to be a very lucrative career path, and they may have too much debt to move forward with in our economy, to buy a house or to start a family. So what I believe is we need to invest more into our career and technical education. Oftentimes it's much more affordable, and it leads to a future job where it's needed in our society, and it's a well-paying job. It's a well and good-paying job that you can start a family with and buy a house very, very quickly after high school. I believe we need to do more in investing in our school-to-work programs, our internship programs, and just getting people into our trades. We need to get students out of, not every student needs to go into a four-year university and rack up the amount of debt that we have. And we can put students into good-paying jobs in a much more quick way.
Thank you. Nate?
Through my roles both with the FFA alumni and also serving as an elected representative on the Ripon School Board, I am already on the ground having these conversations with the stakeholders, having conversations with different businesses on providing internship opportunities for students who are in high school, also having conversations with individuals within our school district right here in Ripon on what are some different ways that we can actively engage our students and open up certain possibilities for career exploration. That being said, I'm very active and involved with the technical organizations, working with promoting our students to move into pathways where they only need to go to school for perhaps several years or go through an apprenticeship program to do necessary work. As somebody who does work in manufacturing at Saputo Cheese, we have been seeing a need for well-qualified staff coming in to do this necessary work, especially during these challenging times. As a food processor, we need all hands on deck to ensure that we can get our product out. So that's just one aspect of that. Also, I believe we need to continue to promote our two-year universities, our campus satellites. I went to the University of Wisconsin-Fond du Lac because that was the best choice for me to get my start for secondary education. The tuition was very reasonable. It allowed me to continue working, to be at home, to pay off my student loans, and I still have to pay off those student loans. Had I not gone to an institution like that two-year community college, I would be in a much worse situation than what I am right now. So those are just a couple of the different ideas that I had and what I would really move to push forward as your next state representative.
Thank you. Jean?
Yeah, I think this is a topic that we all have some good experience with. Scarily long time ago, I graduated from college, and I am still paying off student loans. For me, a four-year degree was the right choice because I am a complete nerd and I absolutely loved school, but it's not the right choice for everybody. And I think the more that we can get that message out there to our kids while they're still in high school. For example, one of the things that Adams Friendship does that I absolutely love, their construction department partners with Habitat for Humanity. So our students there get hands-on experience in construction and building before they even graduate high school. And I think that's a fantastic program. And Alex is completely right. These trade careers, as it were, they are a really good pathway to a good lifestyle to invest in our economy. I have positions in Madison right now on my team for just general maintenance, not even specific trades, that are paying $20 to $23 an hour, and I can't fill them because there aren't enough qualified people with general maintenance skills. So just having that opportunity to provide our high school students and even our two-year colleges to have those general skills is so important. And I think we're in the process of breaking that idea that everybody should go to a four-year school, because we all know that's not the case. Sometimes a two-year tech degree is better for a specific person, and we need to encourage that and not marginalize it, because a two-year or a four-year degree or just a high school diploma, we need all types to make our economy work.
Thank you. Nate, you begin this question. The lack of broadband access in rural communities has been identified for years as a critical need. Since many Wisconsin schools are resuming virtually, how can the government help minimize the disparity in technology access while still keeping people safe? If elected, how would you address this need? Do you have a plan for enhanced broadband in rural areas?
Absolutely. It has been very apparent for a long time that this is a need, and it's a motivation for why I chose to run for state assembly. I continue to watch as the same elected officials, the same party was in power, and not a whole lot of traction happened on that front, providing broadband to our more rural areas, especially here in Assembly District 41. Currently, as a representative on the Ripon Area School Board, with the pandemic and having to shift from in-person classes to a virtual platform, we as a school board came together because we knew that there were families, that there were students who did not have that access to broadband, and not just in our rural places. People right here in the city of Ripon did not have broadband. So we as a school board came together to provide hotspots for those students so that they could have the same access to their classes like all of our other peers who had Wi-Fi readily available. So that's just one thing that I believe can be done more on the local level from different organizations like a school board being able to come together and provide that support. I also believe that there needs to continue to be incentives offered to private businesses that are traveling throughout the area offering broadband to individuals. Part of the reason we're not seeing that as much in our rural areas is they don't feel like there is that customer base, yet there are so many people who need that broadband. So we have to have that on the table as well to continue to really move forward and make traction on that front, because we're living in a day and age, and this was made very apparent by the pandemic. More and more people are shifting to a virtual lifestyle, whether it's school, whether it's work, and if we want to attract people to live in our small towns and our rural places, we have to have good, accessible broadband.
Thank you. Jean?
Yes, this has absolutely been made apparent as a critical need during this time of this COVID pandemic. And I think a very clear example, my daughter goes to a small rural school just outside of the Dells, and when they went virtual in the spring, about half of her class was not able to show up on those Zoom calls. And the Dells School District, I think, did such a good job providing that technology, but we still had students that just didn't have the infrastructure capabilities at home. And that's a critical loss for those students. So I agree, public-private partnership, again, is desperately going to be needed in this situation. So I'd like to see the continuation of the grants, see the continuation of the incentives, the property tax waivers, things like that. Because in essence, these broadband companies, they're businesses, they have to make a profit. So in order to run the lines, it's expensive. So we have to find a way to incentivize them to make this accessible to our rural areas. And I know Adams County, when you look at the map, I live in the southwestern corner of the district, just outside of the Dells. We have fairly decent broadband access thanks to the Marquette Adams Co-op. They do a fantastic job out there. But the northeast corner, when you get into the Adams district, it's very spotty. So if we can really incentivize the companies to bring that broadband out into those areas, like Nate said, it's not going to benefit just the students. It's going to benefit the farmers. It's going to benefit all of our small businesses that are in the area. And public-private partnership is the way to go. So we have the incentives there. We just need to build on them, continue them, and really make sure that they are appropriate to incentivize these companies to bring this access further out.
Thank you. Alex?
I absolutely agree with everything that's been said. The issue of rural broadband is one of the top issues that I'm running on. It's one of the main things that I want to keep pushing forward in our state legislature. I will disagree with Nate, however, that we haven't made great progress in the expansion of rural broadband in our state with our state legislature in the last, and our federal government over the last few years. There are programs in place. We just need to keep investing in them, invest more into them, and create more incentive into putting the money into our rural areas and not just into our urban areas and restructuring our broadband there. The money has to come in to our rural areas, and obviously it can't go up overnight, but we need to keep working every single day to get internet into every single household so that we can have people move into our district, be able to work abroad in our district, and be able to send their kids to school in our district. And especially during COVID-19, obviously we need to make sure that our students can get on the internet and be able to and educate virtually so they're not left behind.
Thank you. Jean, we'll begin with you. Should taxpayer dollars be used to support private schools? If so, why or why not? Would you support and advocate putting, what is your position on school vouchers being paid to private institutions with public money? I seem to have lost a line question.
That's all right. That's all right. Well, Wisconsin is already an open enrollment state. So the ability of our families to choose the school district that they would like their kids to attend is already there. I am a big proponent of public schools. I grew up in a public school system. I felt like my district did a fantastic job with the general education, preparing students for college and preparing students for some of those tech opportunities as well. So it feels like going to a private school is a personal choice, and we should be responsible for our personal choices. Now, that being said, I understand that this voucher program also helps provide opportunity for those that are marginalized and sometimes left behind. So it's an interesting balance to try to find, but I think it can be done. And one thing that I think would really help, right now there's a difference in the amount of funding for a voucher student versus an open enrollment student. And even if we were to even those out, it would generate more money for our public school system, and I think that would be really helpful. One thing that I think would also be good, and I think this might be the line that was missing, was our property tax bills, and having the amount of money that is dedicated to public schools, open enrollment versus voucher students. More transparency on why we're paying taxes is never a bad thing. So I am very much in favor of having that information on our tax bills so that we can see where our money is going.
Thank you. Alex?
Yeah, I'm highly in favor of the voucher system and for school choice. I believe that I know what to do with my money better than the government does. And if I believe that my child would be better off in a private school, I believe I should have the opportunity to take the money and instead of putting it into the public school, being able to put it into the private school. I am a big proponent of public schools. I grew up in a public school. My father is still a teacher in a public school, and they're great things. But I believe that in America we have the freedoms to choose where we want to be educated, and it's also a better. It provides a great opportunity for people in poverty to possibly be able to get out of a failing public school and into a private school to be able to get a better education. I will disagree with Jean, however, on the tax bill. Vouchers are not funded through property tax. They're funded through our general fund. So therefore, when you get a breakdown of where your property taxes are going, none of that money from your property taxes is actually going towards your voucher system. So I just don't believe that would be a breakdown that would make any sense. But I do believe that we need to keep reinvesting in our voucher program and allowing people to choose where they would like to be educated.
Thank you. Nate?
I disagree with increased funding for our voucher program. As somebody who grew up in public schools, who had an incredible experience within my school time here in the Ripon area, I decided to run for the Ripon Area School Board because of the experiences that I had when I was a student here and how it shaped and formed me into the man that I am today. That being said, I am going to continue moving forward in a direction in which I am advocating for public school support to the best of my ability. And I also believe it's very important for us to recognize, at least speaking from a personal experience, many of the folks who I know send their children to private schools for a variety of reasons. It could be they have some challenges with the public school system, or there's some religious reasons. A lot of these families, a lot of these parents, they're already considering that pathway long before they have children. So that being said, if that is a decision that they choose to make, they should be doing that independently. They have that choice. They do not need any government support to move in that direction. And I believe a lot of these families are also planning budgetarily for the time when their students are going to be in a private school setting.
Thank you. Alex, we begin with you. What can the state legislature do to aid farmers when so much policy and practice, including things like NAFTA and tariffs, come out of the federal government?
Working along with Congressman Grothman in the federal government, we have seen that our farmers are obviously in need of some support. I believe that our federal government has done a good job of raising our dairy prices through different trade agreements, such as the USMCA. And as a representative of this district and working along with our state legislature, I'd be happy and looking forward to working with groups such as the Wisconsin Farm Bureau to see how we can better open more markets for our farmers and to better help them as they come along, because they're at the will of the market and at the will of the weather. So there's obviously things that are out of our control when it comes to farming, but we need to do all that we can to support them and to open up as many markets and help them succeed in our state, and especially the 41st district as we move forward.
Thank you. Nate.
I have a lot of thoughts and feelings on how we can support our farmers as somebody who grew up in agriculture and still works within agriculture. I'm already doing a lot of groundwork as a Farm Bureau member, as somebody who is active with the FFA alumni, to try to move forward in a way in which we continue to receive more support as individuals involved in the agricultural community from our state legislature and also at a federal level. As a Farm Bureau member, I travel down to Madison every year to speak with our legislatures on different steps that we can take to support our farmers and our agricultural community. It's an $88 billion industry here in Wisconsin, which I don't believe a lot of people realize. So it has a significant economic impact, and a lot of people are employed through agriculture in some aspect of the economy. We need to continue to offer mental health support to our farmers. That has been an increasing issue in the last couple of years with difficult weather patterns, difficult markets, and we have seen the negative ramifications of letting that continue on as is. Also, another concern too, more and more farms are going into foreclosure, are going bankrupt. They are going out of business after having been in the family for generations or over 100 years. I think of Zimdars family farm that my uncles and cousins are still on. And my cousin Kyle is the 5th generation, and he has a 3-year-old son who he wants to take over to farm someday. And I do not want to see the day come where he has to look his son in the eye and say, I am the last farmer. So we absolutely have to do more to support our farmers, and a couple of different ways that we can do that. We need to provide incentives and grants to beginning farmers, people who maybe don't have a strong agriculture background but want to get into the industry, and also providing price supports for farmers who have been impacted by, be it weather or be it the COVID pandemic. That's something that has been made abundantly clear just in the last few months, is that there is more we have to do.
Thank you. Jean.
Yes, well, I am very clearly not a farmer, so I don't bring that experience. But I really believe that we need to make sure we're incorporating farmers in on this conversation and not just assuming that we know what's best and writing this policy because we know what farmers actually need, because clearly that's not the case. It was expressed to me actually the other night. A gentleman said, well, farmers are only 2% of the population, so nobody's going to listen to us. And I went, what? No, farmers are such a huge part of not only our district, but our state. We have to be listening to farmers. And a couple of things that I think are really important. I think we have made some progress on the mental health support with the implementation of the new hotline that's really geared for farmer mental health support. I think that was a fantastic move, and I'm really excited about that. But there's little things too. Obviously there's the big macro components, but some small things that have been brought up that I found really interesting. For example, right now, we just saw that there was this processing shortage or backup that happened during COVID. And one thing that was brought to my attention is right now our farmers don't have the ability to do small-scale processing of their own livestock products. So I thought it was a really interesting idea, and other states have done this, to have a limited amount where farmers can process their own poultry or rabbits and part them out and bring them to farmers markets, which we know are really big in our area, and be able to sell them that way. Right now, the customer has to come to the farm and they have to buy the whole animal. And I don't know many people that know how to part out their own chicken. I know I certainly don't. So to be able to do that and to buy locally, I know I would love that opportunity because it would be supporting my local farmers. So that's just a small example of a change that we could make that I think would really be a benefit. And from what I'm hearing from the farmers, they would really like to see happen.
Thank you. Nate, you begin this question. Many of us have never experienced racial prejudice or discrimination, but recent events highlight systemic racism in our country. As a legislator, what strategies would you propose to deal with racism and inequality in Wisconsin?
Right now, we're looking at a really politically charged climate here in our state on this issue. And it has become so unfortunate that this issue is so divisive. Yet I see opportunities currently for us to continue moving forward in a bipartisan manner. There is a task force that the Speaker of the State Assembly, Robin Vos, initiated to address this issue, to have conversations about what more the legislature can do to address the issue of systematic racism here in the state of Wisconsin, which I will say is an issue. Systematic racial injustice does exist in our state. Also, we look at the 9-bill package that Governor Evers put forward, and when you have an organization like the Wisconsin Professional Police Association get behind that package, to me, that comes across as a common sense solution. If we have law enforcement that's in agreement with this, and our governor is taking the time to work with law enforcement, I believe we need to act on something like that, especially when it's simple things like addressing chokeholds and other issues that have really been brought to the forefront in the last few months as we have continued having this conversation about racial injustice and also law enforcement's role in it. That being said, I know Senator Van Wangard down in the Racine area. He was a former law enforcement officer. He brings some intimacy to this issue, and he has put forward a proposal for organizing a database for law enforcement officers who have tripped up and made some kind of mistake. And I believe that's also something that we need to pass, that we need to act on. So there are a couple of different things going on within our state right now, and I am encouraged by the bipartisanship. And at the end of the day, we have to move forward on this because it's high time that we address some of these systematic inequalities we are experiencing in our state.
Thank you. Jean?
Definitely agree. Like I said, my degree's in history. I am a history nerd. And when you study the history, you see where these systemic policies came into place. And they may have been repealed in some aspects, but the effects are still being felt. And I think a really good example, back in 2017, obviously we had some very low unemployment, 2.6% for Caucasian residents of Wisconsin, 9.6% for African American residents. That's a huge disparity. And the graduation rate was the same. 93% of Caucasian students were graduating high school, 64% of African American students. There are clearly systemic disparities here that can still be addressed. And I think what we're seeing right now, again, the focus is in on this law enforcement reform. And Wisconsin has really led the way in the past. I mean, we were the first state to pass this idea of having a non-involved third party to investigate use of force matters. So we can continue that advantage that we've had and that leadership that we've shown. And it's very clear, like you said, from the Wisconsin Professional Police Association, they're on board with the essence of the governor's packages. So we are seeing bipartisanship, and we need, as a legislature, to make sure that we're continuing to move that ball down the field. That is something we very much can do to make sure that we are starting to erase some of this disparate impact that we've seen. Again, as a real estate professional, disparate impact is very near and dear to my heart, and I actively work every single day to negate that in the housing market.
Thank you. Alex?
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to handling this situation and these issues as I move into the state legislature, should I have the chance. I obviously cannot say that I've lived in the shoes of an African American or know what they experience in an everyday basis, but I would definitely be looking forward to sitting down and hearing about the injustice that we have in our society. That being said, I think we need to move forward. With the definition of systematic racism, it means that it's built into our laws and into our policies that we have right now. So I'd be looking forward to seeing the examples of the laws and being able to work with specific policies and laws on the books already and being able to reverse those policies so that we can create a more fair playing field in our state. I do believe that we need to bring the rhetoric down on both sides. We need to bring it back more towards the middle in a bipartisan manner so that we can come together and create meaningful change. I believe America has done more than any other country in the history of the world in getting people out of poverty and out of injustice in our world. And I believe that we just need to continue to move forward and build upon that history that we have. Obviously, there's been some dark times, but we've moved forward and we've gotten out of them. And I just believe this is another step forward in the history of time.
Thank you. Jean, you begin with the next question. COVID-19 has changed the way we live and the way we see the future. Should the state legislature mandate the wearing of masks in public, the limiting of people at attending public events, and any other measures? Why has this become a political partisan issue?
That is a very loaded question.
Yes, indeed.
But a very good one. And this is a topic that when we go throughout the district and we're talking to our residents about this, it's really a 50-50 split. A lot of people are very much in favor of this mask mandate, and a lot of people see it as a personal infringement because, in essence, we are involved and the best decision makers for our own bodies. And I would say, as a general rule, I don't believe that we should be legislating people's bodies and their healthcare decisions. Now, that being said, there does come a time when circumstances are extraordinary and we have to take that into account. But what we need to establish first is a quantifiable definition of when these types of mandates are considered appropriate. And it's a really hard question. You're talking about what is the appropriate positive case rate? What is the appropriate death rate, which is a terrible thing to have to talk about. But it's something that we need to do in order to prevent this from becoming overly polarized in the future. And like I said, it's going to be a tough conversation. Nobody wants to have it, but we need to, because in order to clearly define when it is and is not appropriate for the legislature or the government to dictate terms about somebody's body and healthcare decisions, we need to have quantifiable evidence that it is in the best interest of our society in general, and that's something we don't have right now.
Thank you. Alex?
Could you repeat it one more time?
Sure. I'll try to do that. COVID-19 has changed the way we live and the way we see the future. Should the state legislature mandate the wearing of masks in public or the limiting of people attending public events or other methodology to inhibit the spread? And why has this become a political partisan issue?
So yeah, I agree with Jean on a lot of what she said in the fact that we need to have a better idea of when it becomes necessary for the federal or state government to weigh in on our lives and our personal freedoms and our choices that we have as individuals in our society. I believe when it's become polarized because we've seen evidence from both sides, and I believe people are looking forward towards looking at their 24-hour news media and the fear mongering that we have and all the different data that's coming in from each side, and I just feel like we haven't been able to really dive into what is really happening with the COVID-19 pandemic, and I believe that in our future. We need to realize that our citizens of our country, it's into our Constitution, it's into our livelihood, that we have our own personal choices to move forward in our lives, and we do not want the government to be infringent on those rights. And whether it be for the greater good of the public, that's yet to be determined, and we need to figure out a way to quantify when these systems should be in place, and when it's the betterment of the public for the government to step in. along with the COVID-19, I believe we cannot afford another massive shutdown of our state's economy. We can't shut down every business in our state. We need to be able to keep businesses alive and reopening in a safe manner as quickly as possible, so that we do have businesses once the pandemic is over. I believe that if we shut down our state completely one more time, we wouldn't be able to come out of it, and there'd be nothing left to reopen. So I believe we just really have to work together in a bipartisan manner to open up in a safe and controlled manner, but not overstepping into our personal freedoms.
Thank you. Nate?
Can you repeat the question one more time?
Sure. Thank you. COVID-19 has changed the way we live and the way we see the future. Should the state legislature mandate the wearing of masks in public or the limiting of people at attending public events or other such measures? And why has this become a political partisan issue?
Extraordinary times call for extraordinary measures, and our state constitution does provide our governor with the ability to put forward a mandate like what we just saw. That being said, we do need to be very cognizant of the data and other things that are in play to determine how long such an order can last, because we can't have this go indefinitely. So we do need to be very mindful of that. Yet at the same time, this is a virus that we are still grappling to understand, and it is having a very significant impact right here in our state, in our small communities, and our country, when you're looking at over 190,000 people who have died from this virus. So if wearing a face mask is just one way to help stem this virus, then I believe by all means that we as individuals should feel compelled. That's my hope, is that individuals feel compelled, based on scientific research and what health experts are saying, to wear that face mask if it's just one way to try to help prevent the spread of the virus. And I look at this through a faith perspective. As somebody who was a missionary in West Africa, who worked for the National Lutheran Church and still remains very connected to the church, I was raised to believe in loving your neighbor. And wearing a face mask to me in public places and spaces is a way in which I can continue to love my neighbor during these challenging times. So I am going to continue wearing a face mask when I'm in places where social distancing isn't possible. And I think currently, just given our situation, that by all means we have to keep this in place until we have a better understanding, or until this vaccine comes out, which is hopefully sooner rather than later, because I also don't want us to see another shutdown. I would much prefer wearing a face mask over having small businesses negatively impacted.
Thank you. I'm going to check my time. This will be the last question, and then we will go into closing remarks. Alex, you get to lead off. Recently, Governor Evers called for a special session of the legislature to hear, debate, and vote on 9 bills which would improve police accountability and transparency through standards and training. Do you support the intent of such legislation? Why or why not?
So the special sessions, I believe, should be the bill should be worked on previously in a bipartisan manner. If we're going to be calling special sessions, I believe that the Republicans and the Democrats should be able to work on these bills in the background, and then once the special session is called, we can work to pass them. I'm not quite sure that the bipartisanship was present in these bills in the beginning, but I would like to see our parties working together to create a more bipartisan effort to solve these issues. I have been endorsed by many of the sheriffs in our district. I am very supportive of our law enforcement. I do not believe that we should defund our police. I believe that we should be giving them more resources to better educate their employees, and to better become aware of the surrounding areas and the cultures and the environments that they're living or that they're working in. So I believe that, yes, we can do a better job of educating our police force, but I believe that they do a great job under the situations that they're in each and every day. But I do look forward to working through these issues as your next representative.
Thank you. Nate?
I believe it is important for us to continue moving forward with these bills. It's, again, touching on what I said a little bit earlier regarding this topic, to me it seems pretty common sense when you have an organization like the Wisconsin Professional Police Association endorse this package of bills. I believe it's a great opportunity for our law enforcement to receive more training, which will benefit all of us as residents and also our law enforcement officers so that they can better do their job when they're out and about serving our communities. And one of the things that I pride our assembly district on is the relationship that our law enforcement officers have within our small communities. A lot of folks know who the police officers are. They're able to approach them. They're able to have conversations. I know initially when many protests broke out across this country and folks became very concerned about a lot of the issues that were brought to light, right here in Ripon, we were able to come together as a community with our chief of police, Bill Wallner, to have a specific conversation about racial injustice and also what law enforcement is currently doing and where there are opportunities for law enforcement to continue to learn and to continue to grow in a more responsive manner. So that's something I'm very proud of our communities doing, for having those relationships, and also the willingness for law enforcement officers to engage in those conversations. And there's already great things happening in our areas. I know body cameras, a lot of folks talk about body cameras, but right here, the Ripon Police Force, they all have body cameras. But if we need to pass legislation so that all police departments in the state have them, then we have to move forward in that direction. And I'm hoping as well that we can continue to act in a bipartisan way on this issue, because we all want to take into consideration the role that our law enforcement officers have in our community, but also be respectful of individuals who feel as if that there is more room for development.
Thank you. Jean?
Yes, I would also say that I also agree that this call to defund the police, it's polarizing and it doesn't accurately reflect what the calls actually are. I certainly believe that we need to diversify our funding so that our police officers have the appropriate tools and the appropriate resources that they need in order to handle the decisions that they make. And I have such respect for our law enforcement. I work very closely with them in my professional life and know that I absolutely could not do what they do on a daily basis. So, we always thank them for that. On the topic, though, of these extraordinary sessions that are called, in this case specifically, it was very clearly a public outcry that change needed to happen. And in a perfect world, we would have that bipartisanship come together, but we're so polarized right now, and things are so extreme between the two parties, it was clear that that wasn't going to happen. So for the governor to call a session, I think, was very appropriate because he was responding to public demand. And for the legislature to have the session and then gavel out in something like 12 seconds, it's essentially a slap in the face, and not just to the governor, but to the public that were demanding and crying out for this issue to be addressed. I think we can get to the point, though, where we're back to working bipartisanly before a session is called. And that's going to take reining in this polarization and this demonization of both parties that we have going on. And that's something that we can do. To make sure that we are addressing each other with respect and respectfully listening to each other. And that's what's not happening right now. We're not listening to each other between the two parties. They're trying to stomp all over each other. And that's the whole reason I got into this race, is so that I can hopefully be that pinpoint for change and really bring people back to that bipartisan table again.
Thank you. We are going to go into closing remarks, and each of the candidates has 1 minute for closing remarks, and we're going to change up the order. We will begin with Jean, and then Alex, and then Nate. So 1 minute. Why should the voters of the 41st Assembly District vote for you?
Great question. Thank you again to the League and to Ripon College for hosting this forum, and thank you again to Nate and Alex. This has really been awesome, and I'm so glad that our voters have had the opportunity to hear us all speak about these issues. I know a lot of people look at my campaign as an independent with this huge question mark, and they're like, who is this woman? Is she just some crackpot with some weird agenda? I'm really hopeful that this forum today has helped everyone realize that I'm a legitimate candidate here, and I have a common sense approach to policy. And I really want to work bipartisanly. I can't pick a party. I have policy discrepancies with both parties because both parties have gone so far apart. So my whole goal here is to bring the focus back to the people. My job as your representative, you're my boss. So I'm doing what the people want me to do. I'm voting the way the people want me to vote, even if maybe it disagrees with my personal views, because I understand that. My job is to represent the majority of the district, and I promise to be engaged and do that every single day.
Thank you. Alex?
Yeah, so I asked for your vote on November 3rd as the Republican candidate in this race. I do have a long-standing track record through Congressman Grothman's office of cutting red tape and also with constituent services, something that I hold very near and dear to my heart. As a representative of this area, I believe that we need to have access for every constituent to be able to have a voice in their government and to be able to get answers from the federal agencies when they need them. And I look forward to working with everybody with specific issues with agencies and to bring forward legislation that will help out everybody in our district. Some bipartisan issues that I feel like we can work together on with the other side are the expansion of rural broadband and investment into our career and technical education. Two things that I'm very, very passionate about. I will be a champion for manufacturing and small business and agriculture. I believe we need to protect and preserve our manufacturing and agricultural tax credit and keep businesses thriving and our economy moving in our state and in the 41st district. Thank you.
Thank you. Nate?
Again, I would just like to thank the League of Women Voters and Ripon College for participating in this debate, and also for Alex and Jean and having a good conversation here tonight. It is very apparent that this election is a pivotal election. There are a lot of very serious issues going on here in our state, and that is why we need someone with experience and a willingness to work across the aisle to get things done. And as somebody who has been elected to serve a community, who has been trusted to use taxpayer dollars going into a year in which we write a state budget, we need someone with that kind of experience representing us. So that is one thing that I can provide as your next state representative. Knowing that agriculture is a big part of Wisconsin and also this assembly district, we need to have somebody who has that intimacy, somebody who is actually working within agriculture and manufacturing, and that is what we need if we want to provide real change, and somebody who represents everyone within this assembly district.
Thank you. I want to thank you all for participating. It's really important that the voters of the 41st Assembly District can compare and contrast your views and your positions on things. We want to remind folks that Election Day is Tuesday, November 3rd. And for more information on the election and how to register to vote, or if you need an absentee ballot, go to the local League of Women Voters of the Ripon area Facebook page. And I want to thank you all for participating, and we can mask back up now. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.